Welcome to Session 1 of your Ambassadors of Compassion Guided Forgiveness Journal. Today we're going to focus on how forgiveness begins by acknowledging you've been hurt. This session is a critical step in the forgiveness process because you have to feel it in order to heal it.
You know, a lot of people are afraid to feel it. They're afraid to face their hurt and pain, which prevents them from reaching true forgiveness and all the powerful benefits it brings. Some people also think that when you forgive someone who's hurt or offended you, it's a sign of weakness or that you're letting them off the hook. But that is simply not true. In fact, Dr. Gerald Champolsky, the world-renowned psychiatrist, said it best. Inner peace can only be reached when we practice forgiveness and letting go of the past. When we forgive, we are setting our own hearts free.
It is so true. When I started the Ambassador Compassion program, I focused on forgiveness because I personally struggled to forgive. I couldn't figure out how to let go of the hurt and pain from the bullying I went through as a child that later compounded as a director and producer and my experiences in Hollywood. I'd ask professionals, how do you forgive? And for some reason, it seemed like they all said the same thing. You just do it. Well, for some reason, I didn't get it. I needed more. I needed action steps.
I needed steps too. And the good news is that by the time you've completed all 3 sessions in this guided forgiveness journal, you will have a much deeper understanding of the steps and processes of forgiveness and how to apply them to your life so that you can become more healthy, whole, and free.
It is our privilege to introduce to you Trinity Ellis-Wallace. She's an author and foster care advocate to talk about how forgiveness begins by acknowledging you've been hurt. Trinity Ellis-Wallace.
Hi, I'm Trinity Wallace, and I'm an ambassador of compassion. My father was a heroin addict for 34 years of his life, and throughout his addiction, he was extremely abusive towards me and my sisters. The last beating I got from my father, he kicked me down 3 flights of stairs and beat me with a 2x4 because he had got high the night before and couldn't remember that he had told me that I could spend the night at my friend's house. After that beating, I was scared to death that my dad was going to wind up killing me or another one of my sisters. And it was hard for me to make the decision to speak up about the abuse that was going on in my home because I was so loyal to my father. You see, when I was little, I was my dad's night owl. He called me his number 1 because I was his first girl after 7 boys. And so when he was out in the streets selling drugs, I was right there next to him. And he used to have me hold the drugs and hold the money so that if we ever got caught by the police, me being the little one was the one that had all the money and all the drugs. And because I was a child, I would do less time if we were ever caught. But on one particular night, I was out with my father in the streets, and one of his customers asked him how much he wanted from me. And my dad looked at me, and he looked at him, and he looked back at me, and he said, "She's not old enough yet." It was at that moment that I knew that my father loved drugs more than me, and that it may very well be that I didn't matter enough. And so making the decision to leave that abusive situation was probably one of the most difficult things I ever had to do, but it is definitely one of the most profound things that I had to do too, in spite of how scared I was. When I was 9 years old, I remember coming home from school one day, and my street was lit up with fire trucks and paramedics and police, and the neighbors were standing out looking at something that had happened. And I remember pulling up, and the neighbor asked my mom. My mom asked the neighbor, "What's going on?" And the neighbor said, "It's one of your babies." And I remember turning back and looking at my mom and looking towards our house, and my next instinct was to jump out of the car. And as I ran to our house, I saw them bringing my little sister out on a stretcher. And I remember seeing the white foam coming out of her mouth. I proceeded to run to the back of our house, and I could hear the neighbor saying, "He ran that way, he ran that way." And when I got in the house, I saw my brother sitting on the couch in handcuffs, and all my little sisters were crying, and all I was thinking was, what happened? That night, the neighbors came to the house. I was thinking that they were going to tell me that my sister was going to be okay and everything was going to go back to normal. And the answer that I got from my neighbor when I asked her, "Was my little sister okay?" was, no, baby, I'm sorry, she died. And I think if it was possible for a 9-year-old to have a nervous breakdown, I think I did at that moment. And the amount of pain that I felt, and the amount of anger that I felt, and confusion and resentment stays with me. It's still with me to this day. I could go back in time and feel how I felt at that very moment. The pain that I felt of losing my sister. The man who did it ran. And 1 month after she was killed, my mother left too. And she left to be with him. And so then I was angry at my mother. I was angry at him. I was angry at everyone. And nobody seemed to care how I felt. We were later put into foster care, where I thought that life would be easier. But it wasn't. My sisters were molested. There was more abuse. There was more neglect. There was more pain. There was more suffering. There was more abandonment. And once again, I felt alone. I felt like the world had turned its back on me. The world turned its back on me. My parents turned their back on me. God turned his back on me. And I didn't know what to do with it. At the age of 16, I got pregnant with my daughter. And the baby daddy didn't stay. He just became one more person that turned their back on me. After emancipating from foster care, I went on to college. I graduated. I've worked really hard to be a person that my sisters could be proud of, be a person that my daughter could be proud of. But because I struggled to let go of all the hurt and the pain that I had experienced throughout the course of my life, I struggled. My sisters struggled. The anger festered. The pain became this venom inside of us that kept us from reaching our full potential and being all that we were intended to be. And one night, my little sister Eternity, full of anger, full of resentment, full of pain, was at the wrong place at the wrong time, looking for love in all the wrong places. And she was shot and killed as an innocent bystander in a gang-related shooting. And once again, I felt like the world had turned its back on me. The man who did it still has not stood trial. And once again, I was angry, and I felt like someone had did me wrong. I was the victim. I want you to realize that you have the opportunity to turn yourself from a victim into a victor. You don't have to just survive. You can do so much more. You can take your experiences and thrive beyond what you thought was imaginable. But the first step in doing this is acknowledging that somebody did you wrong, acknowledging that they hurt you, acknowledging that you have something that you need to let go of. And it's only when you're able to let it go that you will truly be able to experience all the good that this life has to offer. Forgiveness is a journey. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. I've been through a lot, but I'm able to look back on my life each and every day and see how far I've come. And because I can see how far I've come and the things that I've already survived, it gives me hope in knowing that the future can only be brighter. I've been at the lowest points. I've hit rock bottom. And there's nowhere where else to go from here but up. And so I would challenge you to project yourself into the future and think about where you want to be and think about the possibilities. Don't allow yourself to be enslaved by your past. Give yourself the gift of forgiveness.
Even if you haven't had to endure the levels of trials that Trinity's faced, it's important to realize that even the small hurts and offenses can have a profound impact on your life if you don't release them.
We're excited for you to get started. This is the first of 3 sessions, and it starts to unlock the healing process. So when you're ready, please get started with Forgiveness Begins by Acknowledging You've Been Hurt.